Welcome to Train Future, where ambition meets expertise. At Train Future, we believe in the transformative power of mentorship and training. In this podcast series, I interview leaders and experts from various fields.
Can you talk a bit more about Adaption? Like, how does Adaption's approach to leadership development differ from traditional methods?
Yeah, sure. Great question. Maybe there's a couple. There's two answers here, two key differentiators. First of all, there's to explain a little bit of background. There's two types of development that we receive as human beings. There's two ways that we develop and grow. There's one we call horizontal development, which is usually what we get through university and through our education, skills, knowledge, experience, competence. So that's horizontal. Then there's vertical development. Vertical development is about how we think. It's not what we think or what we do, it's how we think about the world around us. So it's very much focused on mindset. So as we grow as adults, we build our mindsets, we shift our mindsets, and what we do at Adaption focuses on that vertical development. So if I take my cup here, horizontal development is pouring more water into the cup. What happens, Ishan, eventually if I keep pouring too much into the cup? It will overflow. So that's horizontal development. We can only hold so much. Vertical development is about expanding the cup so that we can actually fit more in it. And that's what we do. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, things are definitely getting much more, competitive out there. So I also wanted to ask, can you share some unique stories where Adaption's platform significantly impacted one's career growth?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things we very commonly see is we work with people who are coming through their career with an expert mindset. So what I mean by that expert mindset is that they're heavily reliant on the technical skills they may have. Whether that's in engineering, science, HR, sales, doesn't matter what the field is. We all build our careers on a base of some type of expertise. What happens is as people go into their first leadership role, whether that's leading people or I have a very broad definition of leadership, it might just be influencing other people that don't report to you, which is frankly harder than when people do report to you. So what happens, people get to a point in their career where just the technical skills aren't enough anymore. They need to be able to influence. They need to be able to lead themselves. So what we find is helping people to identify that, where am I in my career? And what are the skills most useful for me? A great example is some of the work that we do in healthcare. We actually work with surgeons. There's no one in the world, I don't think, with a more of an expert mindset than surgeons. They are so, their identity is connected to their technical skill set. People's lives are at stake. However, they're also responsible for the people in the operating room, how those people develop, how those people feel about the job they do, how they come out at the end of a really tough surgery, how they feel about themselves, their confidence. So surgeons often play a really critical leadership role without even recognizing it. And so helping surgeons to recognize that, understand that, we've seen massive shifts and then how they behave in an operating theatre, and therefore the growth that they can impart on other people. So that's a really sort of clear example that I've seen, and I'm sure there are many. I could probably spend all day talking about many more.
That's interesting. And how can freshers, recent graduates, leverage these resources that Adaption has to develop their skills early in their careers?
Well, look, our client base is primarily we work through organizations, and usually organizations will come to us and say, how can you help us develop our leaders? But there's probably some things, Ishan, that you and I could follow up on, and I could make available potentially through you, which might mean a couple of free trials for people in your network, if that would help you.
Yep,
Um,
definitely.
Great. Okay, so let's have a chat about that afterwards.
Yeah.
I think what I'd really like to share, though, a very basic principle or set of principles that people can use, and they don't need to be working with Adaption to use them. So it's a free tip, if you like. And that's talking about the way that we grow our mindsets. Some people talk about growth mindset, so it's along those lines. But how? How do we build our mindset is the question we get asked a lot. There are three things that people can put in place. First of all, the first thing is what we call heat. We grow as people when we're uncomfortable. We call that a heat experience. We call it a heat experience because it's uncomfortable. It's a project. It's a conversation. It's a new role. But it's something that puts me out of. It's something I haven't done before.
It's something that challenges you.
Sorry?
It's something that challenges you, basically.
Correct. It's an experience that challenges you. Probably like when you set up this great organization, Ishan, I'm sure that would have been a heat experience for you.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. We need to put ourselves into the heat. If we're too comfortable in our life, we're not growing.
Yeah.
Okay. The second thing is what we call colliding perspectives. I'm sure you're familiar with the term echo chamber that we all end up with our social networks. We end up connect, and it's human nature. We make friends with people that are like us. We can relate to them, and we connect with people that have similar opinions to us. There's a real problem there. The problem is that we're not receiving new ideas or opinions or views that we're uncomfortable with, that challenge us. So we stay in the mindset that we have. So what people can do is build this idea of colliding perspectives. How do I access points of view that are totally different to mine? I don't even have to like the person or agree with what they're saying, but I'm going to be curious to understand where does that come from, and that'll help me think differently. Okay, so that's the second one, colliding perspectives.
Yeah.
The third one is reflection. Reflection is simply the time that we take to slow down. We say slowing down in order to speed up. There's been Harvard studies that talk about the impact of reflection. And they've actually shown that people spending 15 minutes a day in reflection, which isn't a lot of time, can achieve 23% uplift in effectiveness. And that's been proven in sport, and it's been proven in a business environment as well.
Wow, I mean that's really great advice. I mean, so interesting. I mean, like you talk about basically challenging yourself in everything that you do, and also like changing your mindset in a way, right? Like the idea of, okay, how can I do this better, instead of like finding you'd say like an excuse, right? But yeah, I think it revolves in everything you do in life, and I mean that's really great advice.
A lot of people want to be seen as smart. I'm the person that knows the answers.
Yeah.
And the problem with that, when we find out, and I do it at times as well, right? We all want to be the expert. But when we do that, we kind of inhibit our ability to become curious. If I need to be right, then I can't get curious about what you're saying, and I don't learn from your different point of view. So if we can become conscious and reflect on when we're feeling that need to sound smart or be right or win the argument, and remind ourselves that we're actually reducing our ability to learn new ideas.
Many people feel like the fear of perfection like stops them from trying, and trying is the most important thing, and that's the first step. But yeah, I mean, I also wanted to ask, how does Adaption support continuous learning and development in a busy work environment?
It's a good question, because every work environment seems to be busy. And the other reason I like the question is that what we're seeing in a number of parts in the world. We see it in Australia, New Zealand, we see it in the US and Singapore. I haven't done as much work recently in Europe, but there is a burnout epidemic. I think one of the key things that I would share that I think is really worth people understanding is, if you can imagine, we've all got a dashboard that tells us where our needle is between performance in the moment versus growth in the long term. What tends to happen, what we see a lot, is that the needle moves right over towards performance in the moment when we're under pressure. I've got all of these things I need to do today, this week, deadline next week. So I'm very focused on what do I need to do now just to keep my head above water. That's when you're most at risk of burnout. And what our research has shown us, if we can bring more balance there and also balance our focus around growth, how am I carving out time to ensure that I'm growing in the long term? So doing things that may not be urgent today, but are really important for me in the longer term. And that might actually be more on the personal side. It might be building in my hobbies and my sport. These are things that keep me healthy in the longer term. So there's a big thing around balance there. So I think for people part of the reflection is, how am I feeling at the moment? Am I getting overloaded? If I am, do I need to carve out more time for things that will re-energize me? Maybe one other thing that our research has shown is something called what we call the opposite world. And opposite world is ensuring you have activities that feel like the opposite of work, the things that drain our energy. So again, sport, some of the people we speak to have things like ocean swimming, salsa dancing, stamp collecting. It doesn't matter what it is. The point is that it engages a different part of your brain than the one you're engaging while you're working.
No, I mean, I definitely know from experience, like sports is a very important skill, you can also use in your career. Like, I feel you do it and it helps in everything that you do, everything, even like in work in a sense, because you're pushing yourself, you're also like doing some sort of activity and it's fun. But basically what you said, like setting realistic, balanced deadlines, I would say, or routines that are sustainable. And that's, I think, the key. They're all really good advices, and I'm sure that many people like me will take a lot from today's episode. Thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you so much for your time.
No worries at all. Really enjoyed reconnecting with you, Ishan. Good luck with your business. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Thank you.
And I just can't even imagine how much people will benefit from it. It's going to be great. Thanks for involving me.